Hello, everyone. I'm Dominique Johnson-Lindsay, and welcome to the Active Listener Podcast by Lightspeed. For the past 3 decades, Lightspeed has journeyed with educators and tech experts across school districts. With our Active Listener Podcast, we are bringing the stories and experiences of our customers, education experts, and our own team members on how listening is foundational to education. Tune in as we amplify these vital voices and understand more about the people shaping the future of education. We hope every podcast listen will be a learning opportunity with Active Listener.
Thank you, everyone, for joining another episode of the Active Listener Podcast. I have 2 very special guests with me today. So first, I have Director of Pupil Services at Provident Charter School, Brittany Hebert. And I also have Amy Salera, a parent and community engagement manager with deep experience advocating for children. And I'm so excited to have you both. I'm going to let you jump in and introduce yourselves, but I just want to say that I know this episode is going to be super special. So anytime we get a recommendation from the sales team, I always know that they're going to say really great things about Lightspeed, which is super important, but also they're going to come with the knowledge that really shows people what it is that we do. So of course, we're going to deep dive into you all first before we talk about any of the Lightspeed stuff. But I'm super excited about this conversation just because I know it's going to be super good. So with that, I want to give both of you the platform to just introduce yourself and share anything else about your background that you like to.
Hi, I can go first. My name is Brittany Hebert. I'm the Director of Pupil Services at Provident Charter Schools. So we have 2 charter schools located in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. One of them is located in Allegheny County. The other one is located in Beaver County. I would say, honestly, what makes our school so special, it's a unique charter school. It's something that is unheard of for a lot of schools. So we're a public charter school, but we're designed for kiddos with dyslexia and language-based learning differences. I would say for me, kind of introducing myself, I have been the director of Pupil Services or, before special education there for a few years now. I taught at Provident, I think starting back in 2017, maybe. I don't know. The years kind of just all blend together. But I've been an educator, a special education educator for over a decade now, and I am going on my 9th year here at Providence. So I look forward to answering some of your questions here for this podcast. We actually are going on our 2nd year of using the Red Cat system in our classrooms.
Hello, I'm Amy Salera, and I'm coming here wearing 2 hats today. One, ultimately, I'm a proud parent of a child that uses the system that Brittany had talked about. His name is Frankie, and he has been attending Provident Charter School now for 4 years, and he has auditory processing disorder, which is why we have the system in place, but he also has 2 other disorders called apraxia of speech and dyslexia. I'm also here as a professional that works for a national nonprofit called Apraxia Kids. And we actually have a global reach too. And I'm the community engagement manager there. And my job is amazing. I get to talk to people all over the world and doing outreach efforts and awareness efforts and working with them. And also, fundraising for the nonprofit as well. So I get to collaborate with a lot of people that are like me, and I get to help them, but I also get to learn and grow with them while I'm supporting my own child too.
Yes, that is so cool. That is like the perfect mixture between the 2. So I love that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to start at the beginning. So I know, Brittany, you kind of alluded to this, but take us back to kind of the beginning. What drew you to special education? And then kind of talk to me about the transition of going from, being a teacher to moving into a leadership role.
Yeah, no, great question. To be honest, I started my freshman year in college thinking I was going to go for psychology. I was kind of unsure of what I wanted to do. I had a great professor who was like, hey, why don't you take one of our early childhood classes, special education classes, see if you like it. And I fell in love with it. I completed my early childhood and special education program at Westminster College. And then I grew up in a really small town, and I was like, I'm not going back. Like, I need to kind of spread my wings and, check out a new city. So I packed up my car after I graduated. I moved to Nashville, Tennessee. And honestly, at that point, I really wanted a special education job, but I was willing to just take any teaching job to get my foot in the door. And I was very fortunate enough to get a job as a special educator, teaching in Nashville, and I taught a life skills classroom. And then from there, I just never looked back. I fell in love with the profession, working with the students, working with the parents, and just having a job where, don't get me wrong, there are some days that are hard, but there are a lot of good days where I feel like I'm making a huge impact. The transition from being a teacher to an administrator, it was tough. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I missed being in the classroom and working with students, but I also really liked collaborating with families and kind of building our special education department. I had a really good mentor who was our special education director at Provident prior to going into this role. And she was actually the one to encourage me to apply as a special education coordinator, and then a supervisor, and then a director. So she, this mentor definitely helped me along the way. Don't get me wrong, I still miss being in the classroom. I miss being with the kids. There's some days where I feel like I have very little interaction with our students now at Provident because I might be in IEP meetings all day. But I do love what I do, and really building a special education program that's inclusive for all students. Provident, 70% of our students do qualify for special education services, which makes us very unique.
Gotcha. That makes total sense about this trajectory, because I think a lot of us start off not knowing a lot and end up making such an impact. So I love that. And listen, so similar to my story, I didn't know what I wanted to do either. So I'm like, I love it. Now, Amy, I want to ask you not only about your background from the career perspective, but also just thinking through choosing Provident for Frankie for school. What was that process like? And kind of how did you evaluate options and figure out this is the absolute best place versus trying to do something at maybe another school where you would kind of have to advocate a little bit more for what was going to be needed?
So Frankie was at our local district when he was little, and he completed kindergarten through third grade there. In fact, he even repeated kindergarten, so he had 4 years there. And the experience was not bad. We were in a good place, in a situation that they were trying to be as helpful as possible. But unfortunately, too, helpful as possible had some hurdles with that. And so, you're going to a public school, there's a lot of students, there's a lot of needs for different students. And he was always kind of this in between where he needed services, but he also was in mainstream classrooms and with a bunch of kids. So, as much as they tried, we felt that we just needed to explore some options and make sure that this was the best possible situation for him. And so we did look. In fact, we looked at another school before going to Provident Charter School. And that school was for speech and children with hard of hearing and speech. But our local district did not want to release him in order to go to that school. So it was kind of it kind of just wasn't going to work out. And, everything happens for a reason. And we had already been looking at Provident at that point too, just as another option. And I feel like, that door closed and this window opened, and we were on the wait list for a while. And fortunately, that summer after third grade, we were informed that they had a spot for him to go. And we thought, we have to do this. We have to at least go for a year and see if it's a good fit for him. And as much as he was angry that we made this choice for him, About 2 weeks into his new school, we just started seeing changes in him that were for the better. And so we knew we were at the right place at that point. So, that's kind of how that all panned out for him and transitioning him into Provident Charter School. The job that I'm doing now, it's a very personal job, because I have a child that has that disability. And so, I've grown over the years being there, just using my own life skills and the things that I've learned from my earlier days of my career, and then also from my child, and then working with people, like Brittany and other people in our lives that support my child and learning through him and what's, some of the best methods to help support children like him, and, just my own passions. So I'm very thankful that I have that opportunity to be working in a place that I'm very passionate about, and that really gets to hit home for me. So that's kind of how I ended up where I'm at now.
That makes total sense. And you can tell just from the few times I met you about the vibrant attitude you have towards just doing this work. It was one of the reasons I thought having a parent would be great, because it offers a different lens and perspective about what it feels to even work with Lightspeed and know what it is that we do. A lot of times, unless there's a child with disabilities of some sort, a lot of people don't know what it is that we do, why we do it, any of the stuff. Afterwards, people say, oh, that kind of makes sense, or I would love to see that in action, but just the beforehand of being more of an advocate for it and understanding, it's very low, to say the least. So for both of you, I think the next question kind of leans into that, and it's just talking about the design of the school in the classroom, and even the instructional structure. How do you feel like the environment that you all create at Provident sets a path for success for students? Like, what do you think is unique about the environment that you all offer that kind of helps with that?
Ooh, that's a great question. So Provident is we have a central location which serves students in grades 2nd through 8th. And then our Provident Charter School West location, which is in its 3rd year of operation, it's going from 1st to 8th. So our main goal is for students to transition back to their home districts. And that, I would say, that makes us unique for a charter school. We do not have a high school. I know some families would love that, but again, yes, Amy, I see you saying, yeah, I would. But we want our students to be successful and feel capable that they can go back to their home district. We have over at our central location, we serve students who come from 44 different districts. So yeah, it's a lot. We have a lot of buses coming for a drop off and pickup. So I would say with that is how we design our programming. Provident Charter School has this unique learning environment. I'll give you a couple examples. Number one, we have a Taekwondo as specials. We focus a lot on multisensory reading interventions. So we utilize the Orton-Gillingham approach to reading, which is research-based, to help students who are dyslexic, who struggle to read. And we've seen a lot of success with that. Our classroom learning environments, for grades from 2nd all the way until 5th, there are 2 teachers in the classroom. And the classrooms are small. So for example, we may have a 5th grade classroom with 2 teachers, but 15 students in the class. With that, when it comes to providing that Orton-Gillingham methodology, so that reading intervention, every student at Provident receives 40 to 45 minutes of intense reading instruction per day. So we are able to offer all of those extra supports to our students because we know that's what they need. Even just the resources. We have 2 speech and language pathologists at our school. We have an occupational therapist in-house. We have 3 school psychologists. It's just our level of support and need is different than what you would find in most schools.
Makes total sense. And so, Amy, on the opposite side of that, how have you seen this manifest in your child as far as what all Provident offers, and how it's so unique from, other schools?
Provident has done such a good job of really making us feel like our child is well supported. You know, even down to the IEP, which is not a fun process or even fun meetings to attend. And Brittany will tell you, I am a tough cookie when it comes to IEPs, but the collaboration is top notch. They definitely do such an amazing job in making sure that everybody is there and working together. And if there's something that we need to negotiate on a little bit, that we do try to come to a resolution that everybody in the parties can at least walk away and say, okay, I got something that I wanted, or, you know what, we were able to come to a different resolution that makes sense. But, you know, my son has thrived at the school. He has made friendships, even though, like Brittany said, his friends all live very far away. As he has gotten older, I mean, he had all the resources, like she said, when he was younger. And then he transitioned to middle school, which is run more like a traditional middle school. He goes to a different classroom with a different teacher for each subject. I was so worried about him whenever he transitioned to that level. And it was seamless. It was absolutely seamless. I was able to reach out to his teachers and let them know what our worries were before he went to the middle school level. And they all were very communicative with me about things and helping us find, you know, his homeroom and everything like that as he transitioned to a little bit more independence. The other things that last year we really saw was the WIN, like the math WIN and ELA WIN. That was a new concept to me. I've never heard of before. And in fact, our home district, I have a younger daughter, our home district now has math WIN, and she does it. So that to me was I don't know if that's a new thing, Brittany, or not, but that just blew my mind.
Before we move on from that, Brittany, can you talk about what that is and why that's like, because I see you brightening up. So like, tell us.
WIN stands for what I need. So for example, we have a math WIN. And during that period, we are focusing on a student's deficits in math, remediating those skills. So if a student has a math goal in their IEP, say it's on, I'm just going to come up with the subject area, multiplication, then we, the teacher, during that 20-minute period, focuses with a group of students who are also grouped, you know, in that group based off of their need on multiplication. It's a good way to really zone in on students' like need, and then of course to appropriately provide them with the instruction that they need, other than just like a tier 1 math classroom.
Gotcha. Makes total sense. Okay.
Yeah, it's amazing. Absolutely amazing. And, you know, and he is at our home district when he was here, he was getting Wilson's Foundations as part of his education, but it still wasn't enough. And so luckily at Provident, he is getting the Orton-Gillingham as part of his education because he really needs that. And it doesn't only help his dyslexia, because ultimately that's what it's for. But since I do work in the world of apraxia, which is the speech disability, we're seeing it being used more and more for literacy and reading and helping children with apraxia specifically as well, which I can, you know, again, working with people across the world, they all talk about it, how they're starting to use Orton-Gillingham for their child with apraxia. So it's really supporting him in 2 different ways where he needs support. So that's that Provident really supports him in those ways. And then for his auditory processing, he has had the system, you know, in place to help him and so he has a great experience in the classroom being able to maybe get some of that distractions shielded, like he has the system so he can not be distracted basically. So Provident, I could just go on and on as a parent with a child there. And like Brittany said, there's no high school. And we're like, oh man, we wish there was high school, but we know that he is setting up for success to come back to our district. He did start playing some sports with our home district to kind of get like reintroduced to some students. So whenever he does transition back for high school, he'll know some people again. I mean, he knows a couple kids still, but you know, just to get him reacclimated. And, you know, he is, He's looking to the future post high school too, and what he wants to do in college and things of that nature. And whatever he does, whether it's college or not, that's fine. But it's just exciting that he feels so supported that he looks forward to the future.
I love that. And that is so exciting. I think that's what every parent wants for their kids. I have a 3-year-old and, I'm already like, oh my gosh, I wonder what you are going to do. You just never get enough of being excited about, how they are going to continue to develop. And so the fact that he is enjoying this experience makes such a world of difference, especially just knowing that every child does not have the same experience at school. And so to hear you talk about this positive experience with Provident really kind of nails home the point that like you all are definitely doing something right when it comes to creating these environments, which is ultimately the Lightspeed goal, is to help support people that are already creating the correct environment, because we just want to amplify basically what it is that you all are doing. So I did want to segue into you all's experience with Lightspeed. And I think that's really important because it's always good to hear what is the experience that someone has in real time to understand what's going on a day-to-day basis. Why do you feel like this is a good investment in a time where we know, budgets are always shrinking. We know classes, they kind of get larger. Enrollment is always shifting. There are so many things going on. A lot of people have looked at Lightspeed as a staple to like continue to have in their school. So to hear the experience from you all, I think is really important, especially both sides of it. So the school investing in it and a parent seeing what impact it has on the child, I think is super important. So I'll let both of you all kind of just give an overview of like your experience with Lightspeed and ultimately like what you think about it.
Yeah, so I actually learned about Lightspeed from Amy. Kind of introduced us to, the company in the program. It's kind of funny because this was not planned before this podcast, but I went in to do a classroom observation last week, and it is one of our classrooms that use the Red Cat system. And I was actually in there for about an hour just watching for an observation, and it was so cool. I wish I had that when I was in school because I really think that would help me too, as well with like focusing. But I'll kind of talk about like what I saw in the classroom with that product. So there are 2 teachers in the classroom, but only one of the teachers actually had the mic on because they were providing whole group instruction, where the other co-teacher was walking around the room having those individual conversations with students to help them, on the specific skill. So they were working on multiplication, actually, which can be very difficult for our kiddos. So the teacher, I was sitting in the back of the room in the classroom. It actually just felt like I was sitting in the front of the classroom. I could hear everything. It really does like kind of level the playing field. One thing I didn't really mention about Provident too, I mean, yes, we have kiddos with dyslexia. That's what our school is designed for. But we also have with dyslexia, there are some co-occurring conditions. One of those conditions, disability categories is other health impairment, as we like to call it in special education, which falls under, like you may have a medical condition such as ADHD. Everyone knows what ADHD is. So like with ADHD, a lot of our students, what we see are executive functioning deficits, attention, struggling to pay attention in the classroom. It was actually really cool to see that classroom because I, just sitting back and I was able to hear the entire conversation of what the teacher was saying to the students and instructing them. There were probably 12 students in the classroom. Every one of them was on task, which I know like there are going to be days where I walk into that classroom and that may not happen. But when I happened to come in there for that hour, like you could hear a pin drop. The students were engaged. They were on task. They were asking some really like in-depth questions regarding this multiplication strategy they were learning about. The teacher was very much so like You can hear it in her voice. She was so excited. And I honestly think that device in the classroom really helped because, again, it kind of like limits distractions, noises throughout. You can hear the teacher's voice. And again, it doesn't matter where you're sitting in the classroom. I was all the way in the back of the room and I can hear everything, which is very hard to do when you're, going in and doing an observation. So it was helpful for me too. So I definitely think the product is really beneficial, specifically for kids with learning differences and with ADHD and with speech and language disorders. Honestly, I think it's good for everyone.
Okay. And then Amy, of course, consider you're the person that kind of brought Lightspeed to the table. Talk about, first of all, why, and then talk about, the impact that you've noticed with just the Red Cat system being a part of your child's learning experience.
One of the advice we had received, we did see an audiologist at Children's Hospital. And then, with the school, working with those old school, they had the intermediate unit come in to offer services for him. And one of the things that they said that would help is an amplification system of some sort. And this is when he was at the public school. So we started with that, but they were really trying to push on him to use the earpieces and he was not having it. And they kept trying over and over again for the earpiece. And I kept saying, no, it's not working. He's unhappy. So then the teachers weren't using it. And then it was just a big mess. When he transitioned to Provident, of course, it was in his IEP that he used an amplification system. And we knew that the earpiece would not work. So we had to look at the alternatives, which is having the speaker in the classroom. For Frankie, I know the teachers have approached me many times over the last few years and have raved about the system and how much, like Brittany had said, it catches the attention of the students. They're able to help them focus. Everyone can hear really well. They've all told me those kind of things. For my son, asking a 13-year-old boy about it, the feedback is very limited. But, it's part of his life. So it's not something new or, he's just used to it by now. I don't know. I don't have, I never did a study on my child. He's doing great grade wise now. He has all A's and 1 C in ELA, but, we let that slide. That's his biggest struggle point. But, I don't know if that has anything to do with being able to focus so much in class and being able to do those grades. I mean, he does advocate for himself very often and stuff I hear also through the grapevine, but it's very emotional for me to think about this system being in the school because as far as I know, it was introduced because of him.
That tracks. I feel like we don't often get feedback from any of our students, but I think it's important to kind of hear you talk about it in that context because we do advocate for, systems in the classroom in that same kind of way, which is, this is not, it's always used for assistive technology and to support students with disabilities. But, we truly believe that the impact is beyond. It's for all students. And so we love when it's kind of that 2-for-1 where there's going to be a system placed in a classroom where the entire class can get that impact, even though it technically came in for that one student, because we know it makes a difference on them. And it also makes a difference on the teachers. That's something I know Provident is probably a little bit more unique in the sense of, listening to what's in the IEP and just overall supporting teachers. But, for us, one of the conversations we often have is making sure teachers are on board with using them, just because teachers are used to using their teacher voice and not so much having this device. But when teachers really lean into it, it does make a difference for them. And so, again, it's just really important to hear what you all are saying about, experiencing the system at all the different levels, whether it's specific use case or, like he said, going into an observation. What kind of is the feeling that you get coming out of it? So my last question before I get into my fun stuff, I have to ask you all some fun questions before I let you go. But it's really about partnership. So of course, as we've been having this conversation today, listening to both of you talk, again, coming from two different places, but obviously wanting to be collaborative. What do you feel like kind of fosters this relationship at Provident that allows you all to kind of have successful collaboration? I think I want to ask this question, one, because Brittany, I know you kind of manage a lot of it, but also Amy being on the receiving side, and literally you kind of mentioned at the beginning, like, I'm not going to back down from this. And so, when two people are coming in with their goals, how do you all make sure that you collaborate for students? And then also just like, how do you make meaningful adjustments along the way? This is a process of a child being in school for years at a time. So how are you compounding the work that you all are doing?
I mean, I think what the first thing that comes to mind is, especially being in the role that I am of attending a lot of IEP meetings, working with a lot of families, is you have to be an active listener first. You have to hear families and understand where they're coming from. I always let families know, like, you are your child's number one advocate. While yes, I can look at the data and see how they're doing in school, you know your child the best. And I think going in with that mindset is so important. I also would say, like, what's different at Provident is we really take the time to go into depth in our IEPs. IEP meetings for us, like, I always let teachers know, this may be the only time this school year where you're going to have a conversation with a family that's going to last over an hour. And this may be the most important conversation for the family when it comes to, like, their child's education for that school year. Well, yes, we have parent-teacher conferences, but IEPs are different. So really, you are spending a full hour, sometimes two, I'm not going to lie, sometimes three, where you are discussing another, somebody's baby, child, their strengths and their needs. And for some families, that can be really emotional. I'm a mom myself, and, I'm trying to picture myself in those shoes. I only have a 3-year-old right now. We're still working on potty training. So I'm not there yet, but I know that, when I hear other teachers, because he's in daycare right now, talk about my child, I want to be able to hear in the teacher's voice, the educator's voice, empathy, compassion, perseverance, almost like in a sense of, like, that they really care. And I really hope that comes through at IEP meetings at Provident. Again, that's why we spend so much time with our families and just making data informed decisions that will help their child succeed.
In regards to collaboration, like I said earlier, my experience at Provident is really exactly what Brittany has explained, with being able to collaborate with staff. But, since I do work in the situation in the area that I do work, I get to talk to a lot of families, and IEPs, of course, is always a hot topic to discuss. And I talk to parents a lot of times, and I try to remind them that they're part of the team, that they're just as important as everybody else that is there, because, like Brittany said, they're looking at the data. But as a parent, I'm looking at my child and the data that I collect at home on our life experiences. And that's really important to include that as you're trying to support the whole child, not just the data that has come in, academically, but also, the data that you have to bring with you for them socially and mentally and everything like that too. So I do try to tell the parents that I work with and talk with, remember those things, that you're an important piece of the puzzle, that you're the key holder to some things that school might not know about your child. And, there's also things that I'm the key holder for my child that, I work with his doctors, I work with his outside support services, and I need to be able to connect those pieces with the school, or I need to bring the information that I've learned and share that information with the school. So again, it's a big team effort. And I know parents, a lot of times, unfortunately, a lot of parents say, well, I feel bullied when I go to IEP meetings or when I'm trying to collaborate. And that's unfortunate, but you have to have kind of, in your mental state, you can have a personal relationship with all these people. I love Brittany. She's amazing. I appreciate everything that she has worked with me and has done with me. But you have to also kind of sustain a business relationship too when you're going into these IEPs. Go in there and negotiate. It doesn't mean if you negotiate and you're not getting exactly what you want, it doesn't mean that it's because they hate you or they're mad at you or they don't want to work with your child. It just means, like Brittany has said, and too, sometimes, the different schools, even the public schools, their hands are tied. They can't, they don't have the funds or they can't offer all those resources, or, maybe there's another resource that you didn't think of. Like I said, I come in a lot of times, or I feel a person that comes to an IEP, or whenever I try to collaborate with people, that I have an idea. This is the level I want this at, but I am also trying to say, I'm willing to hear what you have to say. Let's put it all out there and try to find the best solution, because although I'm here with this idea, your idea might come in and might not have been something that I thought of for my child. And, there's always a chance to try things. And then if it doesn't work, recollaborate. That's the great thing about IEPs. You can keep calling them if you want to, or even if not even the IEP, working with your child's teachers and staff. It doesn't mean it's the end all be all because you're doing something or you made a plan. It's just a step to try. And then if you need to recollaborate, go ahead. But I feel that sometimes people get worried that they're going to hurt feelings. And sure, I'm human. I do too. But at the same time, I have to remember it's not about feelings. It's about my child and what's best for him. And so I'll come in with a business sense. This is my child. We're working for him. We're going to do the best we can, but I can have a personal relationship with that person too. Hey, you know what? Outside of this, let's show how you doing,
That makes total sense. And I love the way you explained it, because I don't think it's often looked at that way, but that's ultimately what it boils down to. And I think the relationships are the most successful when they kind of take this approach to it, especially because anybody who works at a school, anybody who has a kid, all want to see the kid succeed. That is the ultimate goal. Okay, before I let y'all go, we have two fun questions. I'll try to get through these with less friction. So question one is, if you could remove one barrier from education, what would it be?
I think funding is a huge barrier. Yeah, resources and funding. There's only so much a school can do with the resources that they have.
Living in Pittsburgh, I am so fortunate for the academic choices that we have here, whether it's the public school, Christian or private schools, a lot of charter schools, online school. The diversity of the schools that we have in our area is really good. So I guess I would wish that people would have the same opportunities that I have when it comes to academic choices.
Okay, I love it. I love it. And that's so true. You hit the nail right on the head. I'm in the South, and I can tell you we have very little options. It's so funny. I argue with my 3-year-old right now about what high school she would go to. And I'm like, it's because it's the best high school in the area to me anyway. So I'm like, that's the one you'll go to. And she's like, oh, what about this one that we drive at? What about this one? I'm like, no. Okay, final question. What is your favorite sound?
I would say it's hearing my 3-year-old laugh. He does this deep belly chuckle when he's so excited, and honestly his laugh is so contagious.
I love it. Amy?
Just my children's voices in general is comforting. I love my kids, and I don't know what other sound that I could listen to forever.
Perfect. I love it. With that, I want to end by saying thank you both so much for just coming today, sharing your experience. Please come back and come talk to us again. We'd love to have you and just talk anything about your experiences in your school district.
Yeah, we would love that.
That's all for today's Active Listener. Thanks for tuning in. Share your comments on this episode on our Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn social media pages. You can visit our website at lightspeed-tech.com to learn more about our mission to ensure every student hears every word. And subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Until next time, let your listening be as active as your learning.